If you say I love money, you've got a problem.
What is your purpose in life?
It's a good question. Like my story so far has been of ups and downs, failures, successes. But if I look back, I tell you one thing, I won't be as obsessed with what people define as success.
What's the biggest lie that investors tell founders?
I think that when an investor says to you, I'd like to see some more traction, it means they're not convinced. By default, a business should be about its customers. So the more boring the CEO is, the better it is, in my opinion. So I hate that word, have a clear exit strategy.
Yeah.
No, man, I have a clear value creation strategy. Early stage business entrepreneurship is chaos. My job is to take that early stage chaos and structure it. The most underrated questions in the world. What do you want to do with your money?
You've been at the intersection of politics, business, and technology. Which one of these three, in your opinion, wields the most power in shaping the future, and why?
It's people.
Titans podcast, we got our first ever sponsor, Acom International. Acom is a software and hardware company. They specialize in web, mobile, and desktop applications and even custom hardware development. As a tech enthusiast, an engineer, and the host of a business and technology podcast, I trust them to deliver top-tier quality. You can check them out at acominternational.com or in the link in the description of this video. Now, to support us even further, please consider subscribing. And if you want to get in touch with us, please do so through our social media platforms, which the link is also in the description of this video. Now, with no further ado, let's start this episode. You've been at the intersection of politics, business, and technology. Which one of these three, in your opinion, wields the most power in shaping the future, and why?
People. People wield the most power. Good leadership is, in my opinion, it's been fascinating what I've learned throughout my career, how good leadership can make or break a country, a business, can inspire a generation and can destroy that generation very quickly. And we can see it today in the world. A lot of, whether it's technology, how is it being used in business, and how it intersects with politics, you could see how much of a difference good leadership makes. And that's what has interested me in all those three, and how different, even though they're so different, and how I jumped from one to the other. It's people first. And I still, whether it's in a business mindset, whether we're talking about technology, or whether I still have interests in politics, it's always, to me, I always follow my instinct about the people first.
Is leadership power? Is leadership equal to power?
It depends how you use it. It depends how you use it. And I think that tactically speaking, you can wield power using leadership. But, the arc of justice bends long. If you don't use it for a vision that is generally positive for the betterment of everyone else, then it becomes a double-edged sword. And yes, you can have short-term gains, but in the long term, the only way you can have real power is if you are willing to give it up, is if you are willing to lead with morality, with values, with a long-term play, not just short-term tactics. Obviously, everyone has and has to have short-term tactical approach to gaining power. But to me, power is also a tool. What do you want to do with that power? Where do you want to go? What is your end game? Barack Obama used to say it's all about, he used to write his speeches by imagining the end result of whatever he wants to achieve. And then he worked his way backwards and narrated the journey. This is exactly, in my opinion, what power should be. Do you want to gain power for the sake of power? Where does that take you? Where does that get you? And I think that that's where, in my personal opinion, with my personal experiences, that's what makes the difference.
Can you buy power with money?
Of course you can, but it's short term. You can buy power. You can buy anything with money, and you'll buy power. Yeah, but what do you want to do with that power? Inflate your own ego? Then what? How much
achieve your own goals?
That's the thing. What are your own goals? Like in my world, of what I've experienced. I've made money, I've lost money, but I've felt like earning money isn't a goal.
Yeah.
Earning money doesn't make you happier. I've seen so many good entrepreneurs in this world. The ones that inspire me the most are the ones who understood that it's about the journey, not the end game. There is no one euphoric hurrah moment of success in your life. You know, a lot of the times success is to survive 1,000 failures. If you look back and you think about it, you go, wow, you know, like it's a continuum. Like, look how much I survived. Look how much I've learned. You never really remember that one time you made a lot of money and oof, wow, like I feel so good about it. No, you feel so good about everything, the story. The journey, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that the more people realize this, the better we are in this world, because, you know, like a real entrepreneur wants to solve a problem. Imagine how much work it got for you to solve that problem. It's not about making the money. I mean, by the way, there's like a group in the US, you know, that is counseling second and third exited entrepreneurs.
Counseling.
Like counseling them, yes, because they feel a sense of depression after they exited their businesses because they lack the purpose anymore. They want to try to find that purpose again.
Okay.
You know, so imagine how interesting a world we live in where millions are dying to get to a successful exit because they think it's glorifying them.
Yeah.
When in reality, the ones who have exited feel blue, they feel down.
Yeah, I think that man strives when they have a purpose in life. What is your purpose in life at the moment?
It's a good question. I think right now my biggest purpose in life is to paint a much more positive picture of the world for my son than the one that exists. Every problem I'm solving at work, but not only that, the way I'm solving it, the way I approach it every day, I want it to make a difference in the way we live our lives. I honestly care less about the money than I used to. I care more about the value of the connections I make and the impact that these businesses will have on the world. You know, so yeah, my purpose is to paint a much more positive picture, to leave a much better world for my son. I know it's a cliche,
Yeah.
but
No,
it's
not really. Not
it's
really.
important.
At what point in life do you stop caring much about money?
When you've made money and you realize that it didn't make you happier.
Okay.
You know, when you make money, I saw your episode with Salim Eddi. What makes him happy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What makes him happy? How could he turn down a big offer? Why did he? Because what makes you happy, man?
I think what makes him happy is walking into his office, Mirax, in Lebanon. They have around 1,500 employees, and just seeing the employees and like chatting with them as he's one of them.
It's the story you tell in your life, you
Yeah.
know? Like my story so far has been of ups and downs, failures, successes. But if I look back, I tell you one thing, I won't be as obsessed with what people define as success anymore. I won't. I will not fight people hard enough for money or business decisions. I will not obsess about the metrics as much as I will care about the value of what you're building. If you gotta spill so much blood to achieve something, even if you consider that to be a good thing, maybe it's not worth it. You know, look around you. Yani, the use of AI, for example, you know, you can use AI to monitor people's thoughts, but you can also use AI to democratize science and make it more accessible around the world. It's not about AI. It's not about how much people pay for it. It's about how you use it and what story you'll be able to tell.
Yeah. What academia lacks to teach people to be great entrepreneurs?
I like the idea that there are two types of people. I think to the day I call myself a recovering academic. And I don't think that there are two types of people. I think that there are two sides of all of us. There's the side that No, let me walk that back. So, do I hate academia? Not anymore. But am I taking my revenge on academia? Sort of. Because, especially in social sciences, by the way, they tear you down. Like, you can't walk in and say, hey, I have this theory that probably could change the way we look at the whole world. They'll laugh in your face and they're just gonna like minimize you into some minor achievement somewhere. The way the industry goes, I mean, yeah, you know what? I don't like how they're going. Like, if you look at universities around the world, they're struggling to keep their position. They're not useful as much as they used to be.
Right.
And
They're
the way
not
we're
even useful for engineers, I think.
yeah, the world is changing, and they
Yeah.
have to keep up, and they're not the best at keeping up.
100%.
I mean, um, so I'm probably okay. I'll have to agree with your. If I have to go, I'll go with your side of things. So I left because I really felt that we didn't cater to people that we are. I mean, what's the product of academia? If we want to think in business, right? It's
Yeah.
the people you produce,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because the people you produce, they produce the knowledge. So if you sit in your chairs in these like very old offices in universities and you're complaining about like how your students don't read or how you're failing to reach people, I mean, and you're blaming them for that, it's like self-defeating. Right? What are you doing? Why should you get paid? Like, your job is to appeal to people. Your job is to give them the tools and then empower them. So if they're not really paying attention to you, you should be asking yourself the questions, not them.
Yeah.
So I left. I remember my supervisor at the time told me, that there's like a 20% chance only that you'll come back, because I basically walked out of my own viva, my defense of my PhD. And I told him, like, I started a company. I don't think I want to keep going for now. Maybe when things settle down a little bit, I'll get back to it. And he's like, bullshit, you're never going back.
They never come back.
And I didn't. I never
Yeah.
went back. I also am very ADHD, so I need to be always very stimulated, and that's why I love entrepreneurship, because, man, I love the chaos and the early stage. I love the uncertainty. I love the selling part of it.
Yeah. That's what a lot of people fear.
So I used to fear it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I used to fear it a lot.
Yeah, but I think once you go through it, once or twice or maybe a couple of times, then there's someone that said, I forgot on which podcast, that when you realize you're not gonna die after this stage,
Yeah.
it gets easier.
Yeah, man, I shifted from somebody who stormed out of a marketing class in my undergrad degree, my studies. And I like literally stormed out of class. I hated how they used psychology to sell people something. I was quite radical about it. To becoming someone who I can't stop selling. To me, there's everything I do during the day is exciting, but then when it comes to sales, fundraising, pitch, close it, oof, like, wow, I'm hyper focused on that.
Yeah, yeah.
And the shift in between was pure pain. Like, I had to do it. I started a business. I didn't even think about what that means and what it will require. Found out that I can't get a salesman. I have to sell.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so I had to sell. And you know what? What I love about entrepreneurs is, in my opinion, it's a bit like boxing. And you know how like a lot of people see boxing as an honorable sport, right? And in
Yeah.
fact, it is.
Yeah.
There are rules in boxing. It's not just, but rules that are pretty much about honor, right? So to be willing to put everything you got to sell something that you believe so strongly in is a very honorable thing to do. And I have huge respect for people. Every entrepreneur I worked with, some of them were selling things that I didn't think would work, but at least I respect that they have put everything they got behind it. And now I see it in everyone as well. Like, everyone who talks to me, whether they're doing, why do you do this? Why do you do a podcast? Why do you do what you do? Everybody. To me, I see a huge honor. You put yourself, all of you, behind it. And so the least I could do is stand by you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Support you.
Yeah.
I really, that's what drives me, honestly.
Yeah. Hearing the story.
Yeah, man. We all. What
Yeah.
do you got at the end of this life? It's a story. You'll tell
100%.
it to yourself. You'll tell it to people.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like hearing people's stories, you never hear the same story, right? And every time you're gonna hear a unique story, and that's something super interesting.
Yeah, and like um, innovation and technology and products. What is it? What makes a great product?
Yeah.
I use something. I used to have an inferiority complex when I started because I came from social sciences. I used to feel like, who
You're
are
not
you?
like engineering
Yeah,
or
yeah,
Harvard
yeah.
MBA.
And
Yeah.
all the consultants and all the venture capitalists, they're engineers. And like even in the US, it's even more specialized. Like you'd have a biomedical engineer running a healthcare venture
Yeah.
fund. Who are you? Why would we trust you? And I used to have that sort of inferiority complex. And then I realized that, hold on, like, why am I trying to mask the fact that I don't understand the technology? And so over time, I switched my mindset. I was like, okay, you know what? If I don't understand you, then it's not smart enough. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like I would tell an engineer, if I
Okay.
can't understand what you're doing, it's not my problem, it's your problem.
Mm.
And then I would start saying, you have to pitch it to me like you're talking to your grandmother.
Yeah.
And the reason why I trusted that is because all the good products, even in deep tech, which I work in now, have to be simple. They have to be straightforward. They have to be simple. Minimum friction, right?
Yeah.
Seamless integration. Everything, like name one area in the use of technology that just can be so complicated, and it's okay that it is. You know what I mean? Like everyone has to develop at the end of the day a simple product.
Yeah.
And so I used to have that my grandmother philosophy with every team I worked for. If my grandmother doesn't understand it, it's not good enough. So simplify it.
Yeah. Or explain it for a 10 years old.
Yeah.
Totally right. Like as much as ChatGPT is complex, at the end of the day, users see it as like a chat box where you can write whatever you want and get the answer for it.
Yeah. No, I don't care what's going on in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, Nadim, I think you're someone very modest, like very down to earth, I'd say, because I think you have like a very nice career, a very successful career, very nice milestones. You have your own venture that invests in AI, as we were saying, deep tech, quantum computing, and I don't know if
Fusion energy.
and fusion energy. So that's something like. I see it as my own personal goals, maybe.
Mm.
So you're someone really experienced in the startup world, in the venture world, and many startups in Lebanon and the MENA region rely on international funding. So is there really a sustainable startup ecosystem here, or are we just building companies that are exit strategies for foreign investors? Like you told me that you don't really keep up with the news and the venture world in the MENA region, but I'd like to like your opinion on this.
Um, I am generally not a big fan of building a business with only the idea of an exit in mind. I am not. And another thing I'm not a big fan of is, and I know it's a bit of a digression, but I'll get back to the point you're making, is when we idolize CEOs and idolize entrepreneurs, and that's happening right now in the US.
How do you idolize a
Elon Musk,
CEO? Okay.
like wow, like Steve Jobs or whatnot.
Okay.
To me, by default, a business should be about its customers. So the more boring the CEO is, the better it is, in my opinion.
Okay.
Now, if you're an entrepreneur, you want to see what the big successful people do, that's fine. But when we idolize CEOs and not the product, that's where I start, like, I have a problem with that.
Okay.
But anyway, the reason why I say that is because when you build a business, you have to build it for your market. You have to have a clear, you know how you do it. If you've seen a deck, right? What is it? Problem statement, right? Solution, So problem, solution, market fit. That's the third word, market fit. What's your market? Where's your market? And how are you going to fit that market? And what is the market size? What is the market share you're aiming at?
The demand.
And yeah, and the good investors always look at how you are defining that market. In what I've learned working in an acquisitions environment with big companies is that they look at it as either probabilistic or deterministic. Probabilistic means I'll probably get that much of a share in the market. Deterministic is literally building up my market share from where I am right now and what I'll do to get to where I want to be. So it's much more granular, very clear. Like I have 50 customers and I'm going to get to 350 and I'm going to follow a path to get there, right?
Okay.
All of that I'm saying is that you build businesses in the Middle East for the Middle East first and foremost.
Okay.
You don't build businesses for some foreign investor to come acquire you. Now, why would an investor, not even an investor, a corporate, someone want to buy you? That is a whole different, there's a whole different, either they want to access that market, so it's easier for them to access it through you.
Or purchase the technology. Or maybe not.
Sure, if you have, I haven't seen any technologies coming out of the Middle East that are proprietary so differentiated that you'd rather buy it than build it.
Yeah.
I haven't, and this is not to disrespect or undermine the tech ecosystem in the Middle East. I think, and that's pretty normal. You know why? Because right now what you should do is you should build a business for your market. And the market here consumes technology, does not produce it yet. So, but if you look at, for example, Dubai, UAE or Saudi, they are creating their own, for example, in my field there's Falcon. There's now Falcon 3.0, I think, in the UAE. And that is interesting because you're trying to build
What is Falcon?
Falcon is actually the Arab equivalent of ChatGPT.
Okay. Is it public?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an open source. And it's very, it's commendable, but notice that you can only build that because it's government funded.
Okay.
Right? And let's not kid ourselves. The US is also the same. Even to the day, a lot of the innovation R&D starts with government funding.
Yeah.
Private money comes at a later stage once commercialization comes in, right? So to go back to your question, like, what do I think in the region? I think first you build for your market, you scale, and yeah, maybe one day an investor will come and say, I want to put money in or I want to buy your company. Anghami was often the subject of an acquisition, but they refused it, and I really respect what they did.
But they then not long ago
did a merger.
Yeah, a merger.
Yeah, but you see, the decision of the merger, in my opinion, is fantastic because they basically merged with a market leader in, I think, OSN, right? So in the Middle East. So they
went public. Okay.
Yeah, and there is a fantastic logic to why they did it. Because they want to go mainstream even more in the Middle East. Okay. They would have done, in my opinion, and I remember, I know the founders from a long time ago, but I have lost contact over years. But it's a very smart decision because they merged with their entity that knows and navigates their market very well versus a probably bigger entity, maybe a bigger check, but doesn't know the market very well, that would destroy maybe or, weaken what they built.
Just a quick note. This podcast is sponsored by AECOM International. AECOM is a software and hardware company. They specialize in web, mobile, desktop applications, and even custom hardware development. As a tech enthusiast and an engineer, I trust them to deliver top-tier quality. You can check them out at aecominternational.com or in the link in the description below. Now, with no further ado, let's continue this episode. What do you mean by going mainstream?
Like strengthening their presence in the Middle East even further.
Okay.
And why is Anghami? I mean, I use Anghami even though I live in the US. I still use Anghami because I have, a sense of some loyalty towards them because we collaborated early on. But what they've done is amazing on the localization part, right? Like there's their recommendation engine and their work. I bet you, like all the work they've done in the background, there's a lot of focus on localization.
Yeah.
And also it takes a lot of hard work to blend the market, the go-to-market people with the technology team so that you can like streamline that knowledge, which artists, what music, and and how can you track all that. So I really, really like it. And that's, why they became so attractive is because that is very hard to build if you were Deezer or Spotify. How are you going to understand the language, the culture, and
100%.
and that's what you want to build. But what I love about them is that build for your market, build for your customers. Customer first, it's always, and people. And once you do that, that's where you gain your advantage. And so I don't blame entrepreneurs for not being able, they don't have to compete with anywhere else. What you need to do is you need to just build for your market.
Yeah. We were talking earlier on before we start filming about public funding and withdrawal of public funding in the US. Can you tell me a bit, or tell the audience a bit more about what happened and what is the impact on businesses there?
So because of the Trump effort to work on the Department of Government Efficiency, they stopped all the funding. What we know now about USAID, for instance. But so there are so many other funding programs that were also stopped, and so a lot of the very early stage innovations, research and development, whether it's in biotech or healthcare, like in the fields that I'm working in. Whether it's the defense of, whether it's in defense contracts, everything has been put to a halt right now, because they are revising government funding schemes. So the impact has been very, very bad on early stage R&D development, especially things with open innovation, which happen outside the corporate walls, right? So
yeah.
But even within corporate innovation, I mean, even big corporates in the US apply for government funding, and that's something I think we in the Arab world don't really realize. We think somehow that innovation is so easy to. No, you go to the same route that we do. You go for grants. You start with grants. You grow with the research grants. So that's been a problem. I work closely with my partners at 42 Ventures, 42P Ventures in open, decentralized science, which is democratizing how you commercialize IP patents, right?
Okay.
So decentralized science was basically you take research that generates patents, and then that patent is sort of like an NFT, right?
Okay.
And that NFT is whenever it's being used, you can track it. You can track it now.
The NFTs is the
Non-fungible tokens,
fungible tokens,
right?
Yeah, which is a unique token that can never
Exactly.
be replicated, which is on the blockchain.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you now can track it.
Yeah.
Every transaction used, you can track that.
Publicly.
So imagine if somebody has a formulaic composition for a molecule that is now being used in, I don't know, Ozempic,
Okay.
the weight loss drug.
Okay.
You could buy a token, and every time Ozempic is sold, that token is gaining in value, because now that token is attributed to that the use of that molecule.
Okay, let me see if I got it straight. So it's like an IPO, but on the blockchain. So basically, if you have a certain patent, you make this patent or this certificate that says that this is a patent as an NFT. And how would you contribute, or how would it be?
Because when you buy that token, you're indirectly funding either the research or the development of that.
Okay, but is it one token or is there several?
I think you can buy as many tokens as you want.
Okay.
And when you buy that token, just like when you buy shares, you're funding the company that the vehicle that's commercial.
Right.
They're called DAOs now.
Yes, decentralized. Application? No.
Yes, organization. I forgot the
Yeah.
But basically, it's a decentralized form of an LLC, but that's on the
decentralized autonomous organization.
Yeah.
100%. And how do you define the number of NFTs to be minted or to be purchased, or is it an unlimited amount?
It depends on the token you're using. So which is a very good question. So some would limit to 1 billion, for example. They issue 1 billion once in a lifetime. That's it, 1 billion. Yeah. And then supply and demand determine the value of that. Some are open.
Okay.
So it depends. And I'm not an expert to tell you which one is better.
Yeah.
But what I like about all of that is that this is a market now where you've democratized the commercialization of IP of science, and you've democratized accessibility to science too. Because now you can, if your country allows trading crypto, you can do the same, and you basically publish your patent, and you assign a token to it, whether an existing one or you do your own offering, and there you go. You can get funding anywhere you are.
You've advised and led many entrepreneurs. What's the most overrated startup advice you hear today, and why is it flawed?
The most overrated startup, yeah,
Advice.
have a clear exit strategy.
Okay.
No, it's not. It's not about your exit.
Yeah.
It's like me telling you, listen, man, I'm building a really cool boat, which we're gonna jump off, by the way, at the end. Like, okay, why are you building a boat? No, no, I'm about to get off, and I might get off, and I don't give a damn what happens to those on the boat, right? I think you should build a business. If you really, they say fall in love with the problem, not the solution.
Yeah.
Fall in love with the problem. If you fall in love with the problem, you are in it for the long haul. You're in it for the market, for your customers. So you know what? Like, yes, you don't sell your company if it's not for the best interest of your customers. So I hate that word, like have a clear exit strategy.
Yeah.
No, man, I have a clear value creation strategy.
Because 100 factors or 100 events could happen that could change your
Yeah,
or pivot your way.
It's like saying I'm gonna raise my son, and but I know exactly at what point I'm gonna kill him. No, I'm raising my son to enjoy him.
Yeah.
I'm raising my son to add value. You know what I mean? Like your company is your baby, and the bigger it goes, the means that you've created value for a lot of people. So, and I think that they trust you with that. So if you create value for these people, then your exit strategy should be more value for these people. But then that means it's secondary to the value you're creating.
Yeah.
And I love that we were talking about it. Like, why wouldn't Rex sell? Why wouldn't Anghami sell? What decisions you make? Who do you accept? Perplexity. They didn't sell. They got a lot of options. Perplexity, which is the competitor to ChatGPT. They didn't. You know what they did? They merged with TikTok. And it's very smart because they said, I'll merge with TikTok. First of all, because TikTok in the US has big trouble. But I'll use it to use the data. And then the data means I'll generate even better insights. There's a logic to a deal.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of Mirax, I asked Salim Iddi, he got an offer from IBM. We were just talking about it for $2 billion or more 10 years ago. 10 years ago, they weren't like as big as now. And based on our conversation, I felt like $2 billion was a very fair deal. Then I asked him, why the hell didn't you sell the company? He asked me, he told me like, oh, and let's say I sold the company. What would I do? I told him just enjoy life in Hawaii on a beach or somewhere. I don't know. He told me I would never enjoy life on a beach. If I sold the company, got $2 billion or whatever his share is, I would really want to start it all over again.
Yeah.
So I'm already there. Why would I sell?
Well, no one can tell a story. Salim tells his story now, right? Like, this is what he loves. And I was telling you, was that on the podcast or before? Like,
No,
in the US, I know of a group. It's actually a good friend of mine is on it. That counsels entrepreneurs who sold their companies. These guys are depressed. They can't find purpose again.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that millions of people are actually trying to be them, and these guys are trying to be back to that, to the millions of people who just are regular and have a nice journey and some fantastic dream they chase. I mean, I forgot who said it, like, make your dream unattainable. That's the best way to live your life. Make your dream unattainable so that you can always have something to work for. And in many ways that's mine. Like, my dream is not directly about me, so I don't really have like I don't know, a number in the bank I want, or I don't know, a big house, or I just want to constantly feel motivated and also see impact around me and enjoy the moment.
You've worked with startups, venture capitals, as we've said, and accelerators. What's the biggest lie that investors tell founders, and what's the biggest lie founders tell investors?
Good question. Um, I think that when an investor says to you, I'd like to see some more traction, it means they're not convinced with your idea. Once you start getting advice and you're asking for money, that's a no, basically, for you. The biggest lie that entrepreneurs make is when they they overvalue the size of the market.
Yeah.
And an investor can see through that very quickly.
It's very easy to oversize it because no one really have a number for that, right?
Yeah.
But how can you as an investor really define or have an estimate of the market?
It's very simple. There's probabilistic ways of looking at business plans, and then there's deterministic. Probabilistic is I'll probably land at 5% of the market share. And that's much harder to quantify.
Yeah.
Than when somebody says, I've this client base and about to multiply it by 3x by investing in my sales, my business development, my product development,
A logical
my
flow
marketing.
of
Yeah,
ideas.
and you look at it and you could see the building blocks and they're very clear. You don't argue back with that. That's very clear. When somebody comes in and says, I'm building an AI application that I'm going to use in a fusion market, and the fusion market is going to be at like $32 trillion with a CAGR of 50% by 2050. I mean, that's, fish in the sea. And that's very broad. And when you hear that, unless the product is fantastic, most likely you'll be like, okay, you're just you're BSing me, and I don't like it.
If a young entrepreneur came to you today with $10,000 and wanted to start a business, what would that business be?
If an entrepreneur came to me
Yeah.
with 10,000 and they wanted to create a business,
Yeah, and wanted your advice on what business should they create with $10,000.
I'm not sure you're gonna like my answer, but it'll be
Let's hear it.
build what you love. It's the same thing I tell my kid: build what you love, do what you love, because man, you're gonna suffer, whatever it is.
What are you actually in love with?
Me?
Yeah, at the moment.
I don't have one thing that I'm in love with. I love what we're building now, because it's gonna democratize access to medicine around the world.
Okay, and what is it exactly?
We use AI to, 80% of the cells in our body, where traditional medicine cannot communicate with that.
Okay.
So, the reason why is because, again, I'll explain it so that my grandmother can understand it.
Perfect.
Right? So you got a huge millions of genomic sequences that make up our cells, right?
Okay.
In the past, those were imagined in pen and on paper, and you have to like sort through them all.
Okay.
And discover molecules that can actually address.
So they were written in a book.
Imagine it this way.
Okay.
Now you got AI that can read millions of this in like 100,000 times faster.
Okay.
And not only that, can understand these sequences and what different sequences you can generate and what gap junctions and whatever exists between the cells, whatever binds the cells. It can do all of that way faster.
Okay.
Right now, in the words of one wise guy, Francois Nader, who is one of the fathers of this industry, and he's based in the US and he's Lebanese, is that it doesn't matter how quickly or how well you can learn, it matters what you do with it. So there's now a whole new generation of drugs and medication that is being able to communicate with that 80%, which it can actually medicate these. And that's why, I don't think we're far from a cure for cancer, rare diseases, neurodegenerative diseases. So we now can actually unlock that body very quickly.
But, okay, so basically, how did AI or technology help these new medicine communicate with these 80%
Because
molecules that we were in.
because you can now create a molecule almost like retrofitting. You can tell a molecule what you want it to be. You can tell AI what you want the molecule to do, and then it will create a molecule that does what you want it to do. Versus discovering an existing molecule that can actually do something you might want it to do.
In 20 years, when people look back at Nadim's career, what do you hope they'll say?
He was a nice guy. He tried a lot of things. He did some interesting stuff in his life, and it's something we can, feel good about, inspired, and then do the same. I honestly you said I'm humble. It's not about humility. It's just that I'm pretty honest with myself. Like I did everything I'm doing and still will, because it makes me feel good. Like it makes me wake up every day and feel excited like a little child about what I'm building because of the impact I'd like it to create. Money is great. I'm not saying it's not. I'm gonna enjoy it if I make it and when I make it, but what I'd like people to say is that what I tell my son, like, do what you love, man, because if you do what you love, you'll suffer and you'll be okay with that. You'll be fine. You'll have the motivation to do it. And think of what you love, because look, if you say I love money, you've got a problem. I mean, try to go a bit further. Like, what do you want to do with your money? I think it's I don't know. I think this is one of the most underrated questions in the world. What do you want to do with your money?
I guess you're right.
Yeah, I want to make money, but it's for me to do something with it.
What's one question you wish more people would ask you, but no one ever does? Like, I think everyone has a question that...
What is your question? What would you like people to ask you? You do the job of asking us with meeting people on a podcast.
A question that I would love to be asked, but heard, would mainly be my, purpose in life, maybe.
I've been asked that.
Yeah, so what was something you wasn't asked?
I like there's what were the biggest mistakes you made? I guess I've been asked that too. To be honest, there's not much that why did you do things that you do and what have you learned from that? People don't ask enough about why we made a mistake. We're not very honest about the mistakes, like why we made certain mistakes. Like, for instance, you asked me and I told you I let it drag because I felt responsible for people, and I couldn't handle the being the executioner, and it's a very personal. It's a very it's almost an emotional reaction, and I think that had it been discussed more honestly between people, we would learn much more from mistakes. We would learn much more. We would improve leadership much more. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of things that happen in the business world, in technology, entrepreneurship, it's we don't really focus enough on the people aspect of it. Like we always have these conspiracy theories of why something happened. We don't really accept the idea that, what, I messed up. I don't know. I panicked. It does happen all the time in life.
Yeah, some people have a deep fear about sharing their mistakes, but I was someone like that, but with time I love to share my mistakes.
Yeah, so you should. Like, I would find you much more trustworthy if you messed up and you step up, you own up to it, and you say what happened. And it's very important because it is the essence of accountability. Even for me, I think as investors, I don't know if they articulate it clearly enough or not, but what I care a lot about with people, and I do early stage. So early stage investment, it is all about the people. There is no one gives a damn about your valuation. It's the people.
Because there isn't evaluation.
What happens if you got hit by the bus tomorrow morning? There's no business.
Yeah.
So there's no Actually, in the US and even here, like convertible notes mean safe notes mean that there is no valuation. It's we just basically invest in the people. What do you want to see in those people? I want to see clear accountability. You know, if I made a mistake, how are you going to fix it? And if I don't see someone who's willing to own up to their mistakes, I don't want to work with them. I've lived that every day. And so I wish somebody would not ask me more about why I made a mistake as much as be willing to accept that I made a mistake and then help me get over it, help me fix it. We seem to be like, we meet people because they're successful, you know, like what makes success? I mean, I'm not being humble here and telling you, no, I'm not successful. Actually, you know, I really did survive 1,000 failures. You know, I've spent nights with my partner looking at our salaries, and wondering how the hell we're going to cover that, you know, and we even, by the way, like even in success there is struggle, you know, like we did an animation series 10 years ago and we were doing it because we were contracted to do it, and we paid, we did it. We posted our first episode. It was like 3 minutes long. It's cartoons basically,
Yeah.
making fun of a certain group, and we just posted it, right? It was a YouTube channel, very simple. Like back in the day, it wasn't that big like YouTube like it is now. And we went out and had drinks and came back on Saturday morning. My partner calls me. He's like, "Have you checked YouTube?" I was like, "No, why?" He's like, "You should go check." And I went and checked, and it was already around like 175,000 views.
Wow.
You know, and yeah, you know, like you think about it and you go, wow, it's success, it's great. Did you know what we thought about? We worked the weekend because we don't want it to crash. We don't know what to do. We didn't have any clue what we were going to do next because there's that much viewership. We weren't even getting, we don't even have access to the YouTube channel so that we can get any ad revenue ourselves. You know, we just created that thing. So actually the next step was panic over how are we going to handle scale. It wasn't euphoria. And so yeah, I mean,
It's funny how when you achieve something or when you make it, how easily you forget the struggle.
no, I never forget the
You
stuff.
never forget.
I actually really care about the struggle. I really appreciate the struggle way more than anything else. And you know why? Because now I handle the struggle even better. I mean, I'm probably crazy for some people. I'm in the right business, which is venture studios, because I thrive on the struggle. Like I'd be a little worried if I woke up one morning and there's no problem, you know, like early stage business entrepreneurship is chaos, and that's where I thrive. And I feel thankful for all the struggles in the past because that is what I can sell to any investor, right? You were asking me like, do you put money yourself? And I said no. And you were a little like you're wondering then why are you in it? Because I can handle that struggle.
Okay.
That's literally what my value is to the business. My job is to take that early stage chaos and structure it and make it work. And investors pay money for that.
Yeah, that's something that lots of people may find odd, but really inspiring.
Man, I owe it to chaos. I owe it to all these struggles in my past. That's why I appreciate them way more than the successes.
100%. Well, I think that was a very, very interesting conversation, but unfortunately it came to an end.
Thank you for
Nadeem,
having me.
I'm really glad we sat down together. Very interesting. I'm gonna put your LinkedIn profile in the description, most probably, with all the companies you manage, with your VC fund and all of the technologies you're in.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.